Yeah, good afternoon, good morning, or good evening from where you are listening. It's an international event, COP27, so it's always difficult to know exactly in which time zone you are. But for here, it's a good afternoon. Welcome here in the session, Connecting Hydrogen Valleys with RepowerEU, up to global and down towards zero. I would like to welcome you to this event. But before we start, we have people here in the room, and I want to know what are your expectations in this event? And first here, somebody, maybe you can say, with which question did you come to this event?
I didn't came with a question, but I want to understand more the hydrogen economy. What are the niche for the next step for hydrogen to get into the market? And where we should put our efforts to produce and use this hydrogen, because we wanted to replace the gas.
I think that's an excellent question, and it's, I think, very good for the panelists as well to share the experience. Somebody else, maybe? Here, up. I see even two.
How the RepowerEU framework allows different countries to work together.
How countries can work together and how RepowerEU is that?
Hi. The number one question in my mind is what is the European strategy when it comes to imports, when it comes to importing green hydrogen into the continent versus making that or exporting it at a later stage? When do you see that shift happening between relying on external partners to come in and provide that hydrogen versus needing to provide that or make hydrogen in Europe?
These are many questions. I see still a fourth one, but then I really want to start with the panelists as well. They're very important.
I'm very curious to hear how EU would be able to avoid another exploitation of the global south now for green hydrogen or green ammonia and things like that, instead of helping the south developing more added value products.
I see very difficult questions coming up, but we have a very knowledgeable panel, and maybe they can help with that. We have also listeners via internet, and they can ask the questions as well via Slido. I do not know if the hashtag is available. It will be maybe in the back of the screen, but don't hesitate to answer your questions via Slido. RepowerEU, we have published it earlier this year in response to the aggression of Russia to Ukraine. We made it clear as well that we really have to change our energy system, to diversify, to accelerate, very important. And part of the RepowerEU is also to stimulate a clean hydrogen. Already from the audience, the questions were import, export. We would like to have production domestically, that we produce it by ourselves, but it might be that we need as well export, imports from other areas on the global. So that's, I think, very important. But in this RepowerEU, we mentioned as well hydrogen valleys, to develop, to stimulate the hydrogen valleys. And that's where we are concentrating on today. But as well, hydrogen valleys up to global, maybe they will be built elsewhere. We will discuss that. But I think we have here some experience here in the room. And I would like to start with Oussami Abaisi from Morocco. You're a senior researcher, and you're starting as well with some projects on hydrogen and would like to build hydrogen valleys. And maybe you can share what you are doing and your experiences. And you told me in the beginning already why research is so important here. Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Doctor. So hello everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you for the kind invitation. I am so happy to be among you today. So I will start with presenting myself. I am Oussama Baisi, and I am bioenergy and agri-technology R&D engineer at the Hydrogen Bioenergy Storage Department at the Research Institute for Solar Energy and New Energies, aka ERSN. So ESN is a research institute, a Moroccan research institute founded in 2011 by the Moroccan Energy and Environment Ministry. And the idea behind this creation was to support the Kingdom of Morocco strategies of energy. So, yes, for hydrogen and ESN, I will start with one question. When we began to speak about hydrogen, green hydrogen in Morocco, so this discussion began in 2018 when Morocco, with the with the support of other research institutes, conducted a study about the potential of Morocco to set up the hydrogen or green hydrogen economy, and it ended with the publication of the national roadmap in 2021 that will take place from 2020 until 2050. Why green hydrogen in Morocco? Simply because, number one, there are a huge potential of renewable in Morocco. I'm speaking about solar, wind, hydro also. And the objective of this roadmap is to put Morocco as a main player in the production and the exportation of green molecules to Europe. So, in our institute, our institute is split in two parts. The first part is funding agencies who funded green projects towards multilateral and bilateral project goals. And the second part is the scientific part. And we, in our department, we are trying to set up a huge, important platform, R&D platform named Green Hydrogen to Applications. So this platform, the idea behind this platform is to create a scientific ecosystem that will make the researchers and scientists work under subjects like green hydrogen, electrolyzers, also CCUS, green molecules production like methanol and kerosene, etc. But before the installation of this platform, we started by a small pilot. We named it micro pilot project, and it is very small. The production is just 25 kilowatt electrolyzers, and the production is too small, like 3 kilograms of hydrogen per day. But the idea is to start and create like I said, an ecosystem of research around it. So. Why? Now I will back to another question about why we need to enhance this dynamic of hydrogen valleys in Morocco or in Africa in general. We know through the studies that hydrogen will be a major player in the energy transition. We're talking about 12 to 22% of the international energy consumption. So, but now, if we take a look on the current situation, we will ask ourselves: can we get to this milestone by the end of 2050? I think we need to have to do a lot of effort to develop. Number one, the legal framework. I believe that the legal framework is very important to ensure a good and a sustainable deployment of this green hydrogen economy. Because yes, we have national roadmaps, for example in Morocco, actually in South Africa, and there are so many more will come in soon. But we don't have yet these standards and laws how we can export, for example, hydrogen. What's the environmental security, health standards that we can follow. So the legal framework, number one, is very important. Number two, the infrastructures. Like I said, that the idea behind producing or investing in green hydrogen in Morocco or in Africa is to export, is to create a high value, an economic high value. So when we speak about exportation, the first thing in our mind is how and the infrastructures. I mean the piping and the entire logistics behind. So this one is very important too. And also, I will talk about number three is the investment. Yes, it's very important to. We have these speeches that yes, we need to develop green hydrogen. It's very important, but investment part is very important. And without investment, we can't move. We can't move on. And why? And I will back now to the importance of hydrogen valleys as a major booster of socioeconomic roles in, for example, in our region. It would create jobs, and I think.
Okay.
I have still I have time, or it's
just a bit.
So,
but we have also other excellent speakers. But
no, it's okay. I will. Let's
Okay.
back it on to the Q&A session. Thank you so much.
No, perfect. No, thanks a lot. I hear a lot of good things already. Very interesting. But maybe now, maybe Leonore de Lermite. She's non-executive board member of Rega Energy, and I know that you're building as well a hydrogen valley in Portugal. And maybe you can share your experiences and think as well about what can you give to the audience to bring home. So, yeah.
So I'm delighted to be here in the name of Riga Energy. Thank you so much for inviting and be here. And yeah, so Riga Energy produces and distributes hydrogen, and our way of going forward on this project is really by looking and focusing on the industries. So our industries that we focus are industries that are high consumers of energy. And our idea is really to make sure that we find a path for them to decarbonize. So about one of the questions of the panel is how to do it. So we are really on the doing side of things. So at Riga, we lead this consortium. The consortium for the green hydrogen valley in Portugal is called Nazare, Green Hydrogen Valley. There is a dedicated website where you can see a lot of information on it. We put together industries from glass and cement, and there are going to be other industries in other values like ceramics and steels and so on. But on this valley, and the idea is that it's an off-take business. So we produce in place and we distribute in place for these industries. At the same time, we also interact on technology and knowledge for these industries to make sure that they readapt on this model. So the Green Hydrogen Valley is already started. It's going to be commissioned by 2025. And so we are very happy that it's the biggest project in Portugal on decarbonization. Our other point of advantage, and this is, I think, very important from the industry perspective, is today industries are facing high volatility in prices and in supply. Our project is to try to bring stability. And we believe by stability of prices and supply, we will meet sustainability through decarbonization. So here the idea is that we have long-term purchase agreements with these industries for 20 years so that they can really understand and predict how their costs will be and make sure that through the journey they are able actually to adapt to it.
Okay, great. I think you are addressing one of the questions indeed with the industry. I think what's maybe also clear sometimes what is a hydrogen valley, but you said as well, really the production of clean hydrogen, the storage and distribution and the use in a geographical area which is relatively well defined, very close to each other. I think that's
Yes.
a kind of a community, and I think we should have started with that. But for us, it's already so clear. But I know that for many people, it's
Yes.
still what is a hydrogen valley.
Yeah,
But in its
let me just then complete with the fact that Portugal has a strategic position, and we really believe on Iberia as kind of a renaissance of Iberia in terms of energy contribution for Europe. Because we have sun, we have wind, we have hydro, so we have perfect conditions, and we are within Europe where we can actually help this decarbonization. For you to have an idea, this Nazaré Green Hydrogen Valley represents 10% of industrial emissions in Portugal. It's highly replicable, so our approach is to replicate through other values, and by that helping decarbonize, but also putting Portugal and the Iberia on the forefront of this carbonization journey from an industry perspective.
Was it difficult to get the industry in, to get the end users?
I think, of course, it wasn't easy. I wouldn't say it was easy. I think in Portugal we have a global mindset. We are multicultural. We are very open-minded. We think global, and I think this kind of mindset helped also with the help of the government and the fact that this government is very pro decarbonization and is taking ambitious stakes on the journey of Portugal to become carbon neutral. And because of that, I think we had the great context to make it happen. So in that sense, yes, of course, we are always depending for a green hydrogen valley to work. We are always dependent to at least one industry that sees the importance of price stability, of energy price stability, or of energy supply stability, and that has in mind decarbonization. So in our case, there were 2 leading glass industries and 1 cement. The valley has other players, but these were the leaders that make it happen.
Okay, great. Thanks. We'll continue the discussion a bit later on. I would like to go now to your neighbor, Patrick Knubben. He's in the New Energy Coalition, which is in the north of the Netherlands, very active. And in fact, you have real experience with setting up a hydrogen valley. I think you almost completed or almost there, or it never ends. That could be as well the case. But I know that you are very active, and maybe you can share your experiences. You have been already a long way done, so happy to hear your experiences.
Thank you, Matthijs. Thank you for having me. Also the other speakers. I think we will bring value to the discussions. My name is Patrick Knubben. I work for New Energy Coalition. I'm the Director of Strategy on Hydrogen. And we developed a hydrogen valley in the northern parts of the Netherlands. And it all starts with a narrative, a reason. And in our region it was because we have a very large natural gas field, which, of course, the gas is extracted, which resulted in some minor earthquakes, which created a lot of upheaval on top of the soil, cracks in homes, etc. Not will go into much detail there, but that was the reason that our government planned to stop the extraction from that field. Planned, let's say, somewhere in 2023. Maybe the crisis now will have an effect on that. We don't know, but with the stoppage of that field, the announced stoppage, we created a problem, and the problem was about 20,000 jobs, 20,000 homes without an income. So you need to do something, and then we designed a plan of a green hydrogen economy in the northern Netherlands. That was the basis for our plan. And indeed, you reflected the question to Leonore. It's never easy to activate industry because there needs to be money needs to be made. That's what their business is about. So we went about working with the industries and trying to convince them to step in. And in the end, it resulted in a consortium of about 30 parties from 8 European countries, which participated in our valley, which is called Heaven. So I'm glad to be announced the architect of Heaven, which is a very nice title. But we don't want to stop there. In the project, it's full-fledged production, transport, storage, distribution and usage in industry, mobility and the built environment. So the full-fledged scope of the Hydrogen Valley. It started 2020. We will go on until the end of 2025. Probably some delays will result in an extension. But nevertheless, 100 million euros total investment on average. 20 million euro contribution from the Clean Hydrogen Partnership and 20 million from the state and the region. So we are on our way. But the nice thing is, it functions like a magnet. It attracts additional investments. It grows, and that's a very interesting thing if you look at that. It's not a project, it's a program. 20 projects or so are activated in there, and we are making next steps as well. We're also developing cross-border hydrogen valleys with our neighbors in Germany, Denmark, Estonia, and everything in between. We will go a step further. We're also working together with hydrogen valleys in Spain, in the Orkneys in Scotland, and there are many more developing. For instance, the ones in Greece I would like to mention specifically, because in the Mediterranean there is a big chance for growth from the west to the east. We shouldn't forget that, because that's our portal to, let's say, hopefully low-cost hydrogen from, let's say, the African and other continents. And actually, we are going even a step further. We are actually going to implement the Sustainable Development Goals in our own and in other valleys. And that's based on the principle that if you can't share, you can't multiply. It's very simple. And we had a press release made on a report we did for the government called Best Practices of Heaven. Will be available, so have a look at it. It's free for everybody. We did it together with a colleague company called Impact Hydrogen. And the nice thing is that, as I said, it functions like a magic. It creates more and more interest, and that was actually also recognized by Madam President von der Leyen in her speech on the State of the Union in September 2021, that we need more hydrogen valleys. We need to actually size them up, we need to scale them up, and we need to skill them up. We also need people to do the job. We can have fantastic electrolyzers, but if you don't have maintenance crews, it's a pitiful thing. So we're on the track. And to conclude, I would like to say that I think hydrogen valleys are a European success story, which now goes global, which enables growth on hydrogen, facilitates decarbonization and all the other aspects we are looking for. And maybe it's not all about decarbonization, and maybe it's about energy security, quoting Fatih Birol on his last speech. So I think we'd like to leave it to that. And maybe one last thing, I think these hydrogen valleys combined with the SDGs are the perfect example on how a just transition could, well, fulfill itself. Thank you, Matthijs.
Can you just clarify this energy security a bit more, because that drops a bit?
Yeah, I can. If you look at the current situation, let's take Europe as an example. Energy prices rise due to certain, let's say, effects we have no influence on. Prices rise, and you see that everybody is now thinking about RepowerEU. Many millions of tons of hydrogen. We need to get a grip on our energy system. So this is about energy security. The prices are high. We need energy for our communities, for our society. So we need to secure that. And I think that RepowerEU and hydrogen and other solutions in that contribute to energy security. We have to get rid of fossil energy carriers. We have to go to a new era which is based on renewables, and that, I think, is all about the concept of energy security. Then the rest, like decarbonization, skills, jobs, prosperity, will follow in its wake, so to say.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Very good. Now, Patrick was already mentioning making connections with other countries, the Mediterranean. Like now to invite Gökçe Mete, senior expert in heavy industry transition and low carbon hydrogen at the South Pole. And she's working as well in hydrogen valleys, but mainly in the global south, if I understood well. But maybe you can explain a bit more what you are doing and yeah, how you think hydrogen valleys will have a good, will help with, let's say, building a global hydrogen economy. So.
Okay, thank you. I think it's great there are people here with us who are here to learn more about hydrogen valleys, why they matter. I think it's really important to highlight why they matter. It's because it's all about sharing resources. The hydrogen value chain itself is so complex. By placing industries, especially heavy industries, together in a hydrogen valley, you're able to share resources in terms of essential infrastructure, including pipelines, transmission lines, also recover, so efficiency is really important here. You can recover heat. You also need to heat hydrogen so you can share those resources. And even test regulation. So hydrogen valleys are unique because you can really use them as a regulatory sandbox and test policy. Sometimes they actually happen organically. So I just moved to Amsterdam from Sweden, and there I really see in the north hydrogen valleys happen more organically because the resources are there. The first industry moves to, well, they were already there. The steel industry was already in the north, and others followed. So battery factories came, recycling still came, and more will come. And that really, like we talked about, we're going to talk about jobs in Global South in my speech. I'm going to try to answer your question as well. But even in Sweden, like where nobody would live in the north, this really created highly skilled jobs, the organic hydrogen valley, I would say. So now, how do we repeat them? Of course, the Netherlands has great examples, but how do we repeat valleys outside? So let's remind ourselves. So in the European Union, we have a functioning emissions trading system. We have something called the Innovation Fund. That is basically carbon money. So we are able to sort of support them. We have a very functioning research and development system. So we can actually, create a lot of funding for hydrogen economy. Well, this is not necessarily the same case for many countries outside the EU, in the Global South, in Latin America, and also, Middle East, elsewhere. So when you don't have an incentive, a price put on carbon, and not every country will be able to, implement a functioning ETS system. It's also complex, and they might not wish to do so. In that case, you really have voluntary carbon markets. So we already have voluntary carbon markets where you can actually, trade avoided carbon and get a value on it. So what I'm doing today in my day-to-day job, we've just launched in South Pole, together with Perspectives Climate Group and Vera and Gold Standard, largest standard-setting bodies in the voluntary carbon markets, an initiative called Hydrogen for Net Zero. So to be able to trade avoided carbon in hydrogen projects, we need to understand across the whole value chain how much carbon is avoided. That means production, it's your transport of hydrogen to some place, it's processing of hydrogen, maybe to fertilizer, to ammonia or to methanol, and then it's storage and maybe it's use, then in steel, in fertilizer, other sectors. So we need to know exactly what's happening across the value chain, calculate how much emissions through development of methodologies, and then we can monetize them. So that's what we're doing currently, to write the first methodologies. And we're looking outside the EU, places where hydrogen valleys are also happening organically in Africa. So that's mainly my job, and hydrogen valleys are actually great for writing these methodologies because so what happens when you have a methodology for a sector, that becomes a public good. It goes through public consultation, so other projects can actually use that methodology. And since I mentioned, you need to know the production. How much emissions are there? You need to know the transport. You need to know the use cases. So if you do that in a hydrogen valley together with the industry, that's a perfect case and very cost efficient to develop methodologies. And then you can, of course, trade this and bring additional revenues to your hydrogen project. But it makes sense to do it outside the EU so that you don't do double counting, because of course there's emissions also go towards the ETS in the European Union. Now, of course, it's better if the hydrogen is used outside the EU for our case. Then we can definitely avoid double counting. Otherwise, it becomes complicated. It can still work, but it becomes a bit more complicated. And now let me make a point for hydrogen valleys just from a food security point of view. In Africa, there's a lot of appetite also on the demand side to use hydrogen, especially in the fertilizer sector. So ammonia, green ammonia is instrumental for Africa, for Latin America, for India, especially distributed ammonia, where you don't have pipelines. This is crucial because we are now importing most of our fertilizers from Russia and elsewhere, and they are fossil-based. So Africa should be able to produce its own hydrogen, and then also other countries, and then turn them into fertilizer. We need this for food security. So I'm working with these projects to help them also add this additional revenues. We need additionality, so we need to also look at, like, without carbon credits, these projects would not have actually evolved. So I'm exactly doing that today at my job.
Okay, thank you. I hear a lot of issues which we should discuss or can be discussed in length. I remember also the question, the exploitation of the global south, or when does the import really start, the export, why would we have as well this, let's say, corridors of hydrogen? Is it really needed? I think we should reflect on that. But I see a question which is, I think, very relevant, maybe already to do now from the people listening to our panel discussion, and they say, how do you get started? I think that it's such a basic one. Maybe we should answer that one first, because if we keep it to the end, I think then we are lost. How to gather the relevant actors, and who are the relevant actors? And maybe Leonor and Patrick, maybe you can jump in on this question. You just start, it will go. We have excellent technicians here.
So actually we have to start with seasoned high professionals of green hydrogen production, because they need to lead the way in terms of finding the right solution, the right usage, to put I would say the business case in place. On that, from there, then of course, need to identify champions, as all transformations, and this is a real transformation. You need to find champions that believe in it, and that and where the business case is there for them. And here again, in the case of the Nazare Green Hydrogen Valley, it was really, the position was really to try to be doing now, to find a short-term solution for the industries that are facing now the problems, not in 10 years, 15 years. And the idea is to channel all the investments and all the financing through the industries. And also, we believe that low carbon products and being exporters of low carbon products will be the leading way too. So again, starting by, of course, having seasoned professionals of green hydrogen producers and distributors, so that they lead and they help the industries and put it through consortium. In our case, it was the way to make it move forward, because of the high investment that is needed.
Yeah, you're saying the business case. Can you jump in a bit more on that? Because the business case is always asked,
yes.
What is the business case?
So, well, there are two factors of the business case. The one is, as I already mentioned, the importance of energy price stability and the stability of supply. And in the case of products that are energy intensive, this is very important for their own sustainability. The second thing is, of course, something that has to do more about how to put it together in terms of getting finances and so on, so that we are able to, throughout the journey, to make it, to prove that is happening. So when I say that is, our industries, from when we getting started, up to 20% of green hydrogen, there is no structural need for retrofit in the production. So this is something that is super important. That means that industries can learn through the way, adapting their processes to have hydrogen as their energy. And the third one is, I think from our side, our secret sauce. But it is that we can already, at this time, we can already be competitive with natural gas. So in our case, the business case is being competitive with natural gas. And of course, it's a question also of approach, looking to the industries and thinking about being a CEO of this industry. Where do they want to be in the future? Do they want to be on the zero carbon world, or do they want to be on the carbon world? Do they want to be on the volatility of price, dependency of supply and price, or autonomy of supply and control of price? So this makes part also of the equation.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. Patrick, you remember the question? And
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Where does it start? Well, I think every region has its specifics. And I'm a strong believer of the principle that a region needs a business. Every region is different, so every solution is different per region. In our region, we have chosen for a full-fledged hydrogen valley. So application in industry, mobility, and the built environment, all three of them. That happen to be our magic solution. Because we have industries because we are a natural gas region, which are very heavily dependent on natural gas as fuel. But we want to get rid of the natural gas for reasons of, let's say, societal unrest, the earthquakes, but also to decarbonize. And the fact is that natural gas is a carbon-based molecule. So most of these industries use natural gas, and they first retrofit it, they rebuild it into hydrogen. Actually also releasing carbon dioxide. So that is a natural route for base chemicals. For the mobility, it was that we want to step off of fuels like diesel and gasoline. Their electricity and hydrogen are a solution. If you have a hydrogen bus, that is nothing more than an electric bus with a different tank, with an advantage that you can fuel it up far more easily and far more quicker, etc., etc. If you go to the built environment, the Netherlands has a very high penetration rate of natural gas in homes, so that uses the molecule methane, and we are convinced that if we can do it with methane, we tamed the methane molecule, we can do so with hydrogen as well. So there's a logical procedure to that, but in principle, I think every region has a business, every region needs a business, so there is always tailoring. As Gökke said, if you have an ammonia complex which produces fertilizer, that is a logical step to transfer it to hydrogen. And if you have hydrogen abundantly available in an African country or in the southern Mediterranean, where there is no hydrogen, where there is no fertilizer production, it makes sense to start that up maybe in a more in a smarter way than the big industries do now, maybe more tailored to the needs. So every region needs a business, and the answer to the question how to start is very dependent on the regional narrative. You have to have a storyline. The story tells what you need to do. I see my Israeli friends there nodding. There are regions which have a storyline. They just need to open it up.
okay, very good.
I think maybe I can add something here. I think for me there are two recipes for Hydrogen Valley. You need a public sector, that is a government, that is willing to regulate and facilitate, enable, because it requires a lot of infrastructure to create it. So you need a commitment from the public sector, and then you need a supply chain. You need private sector that is willing to collaborate as well. That is quite difficult, but I think with hydrogen we're really seeing value chain corporations, because that's the only way to reduce the green premium. Of course, on top of carbon credits, etc., carbon value, carbon taxation, but you really need value chain cooperation.
Yeah. And the public sector, I remember Osami was already in the beginning mentioning that, codes and standards, regulatory issues. What are you doing now exactly in Morocco to get this done?
Before, green hydrogen in Morocco is not that old. It's a new subject, it's a new topic. So just for now, we have launched officially the national roadmap with goals and milestones to achieve. Now we have to move to the part of regulations and standards and legal framework, exchange hydrogen, how to use it, if you can to export it, if you will export it, what are the financial mechanisms to do so. So we are in this step. But I want to back to the question of how to convince and gather the different people. I think also the research and development part is important to convince the industrials, to convince the public sector people, technically and economically. How? By setting up demonstration pilots, by showing the importance of hydrogen technically, and how the cost of hydrogen will be competitive by the time. That will make the industrial sector and the public sector more convinced to put money and to have the will to develop the so-called hydrogen valleys or the entire hydrogen economy.
Okay, thank you. I see a question from you as well from the audience at home. You have the Arisen platform. How can you collaborate? Maybe you can address this one already?
Yeah, sure. We are very open to every type of collaborations from every type of collaborators, not just from South Europe, even from Africa or Latin America or any place in any area in the world. How we can create this synergy by making a program of exchange researchers. Researchers from Morocco go to Europe, or from Europe go into our platform in Morocco. Setting up also a funding programs to finance hydrogen projects in Morocco or in South Europe. It's going to be very interesting. I think with these two key elements, we can make a great synergy between our platform and South universities in South Europe, or even research centers. I don't know if I did answer the question of our friend.
No, I think so, but otherwise I think the audience can be in contact with you. You're on LinkedIn.
Yes. Like I said, we are very open. We can continue this discussion later on with big pleasure, of course.
Yeah, okay. You're saying about exchange of researchers. I see another question on, should education play a role in regional hydrogen valley development? Guxton, maybe you can answer that one. Is it a nice to have education on hydrogen? Do we really need it?
Yeah, I'll take it, but I'm sure Patrick can join that one too. I mean, New Energy Europe is doing a lot of executive training. I mean, education is very important for the whole hydrogen economy because we need more engineers. So, you know, what we are facing now is there's a lot of announcements. There are many issues with hydrogen economy. Of course, we need to get more FIDs decided. We need to sign more offtake agreements. But we are also short on electrolyzers. There's a huge backlog for electrolyzers for green hydrogen production. There's maybe somewhere around, like, depending on the size of the electrolyzer, 18 to 30 months, maybe more backlog. There are electrolyzer producers, I won't name them, but they are recruiting 100 engineers a month in the last year, and it's going to continue. So absolutely we need more engineers. So we need education, of course, education programs, engineering schools to consider this. But for all, of course, for all aspects of climate change and clean tech, we need that. But we need to also make sure that while we're thinking about education, while we're revisiting our education programs, we need to bring more women into the field, especially women engineers to STEM. I'm co-founder of Women in Green Hydrogen, so it's a message I couldn't pass by when we're talking about education.
May I contribute to that? Looking at the question, is it a nice to have or a need to have? It's a no-brainer. Absolutely. But not only the engineers, but also the craftsmen, the welders, the electricians, the maintenance personnel, and up to the academic and post-academic level. We need to change that tremendously. Without education, nothing happens. People make machines run. People think on how to construct machines. They think of all kinds of things. So the educational aspect is elementary. If we don't do that, we have an enormous problem. So I just advocate what Gek said. We need to invest in education massively, publicly and privately. It's a joint task.
Yeah, the skills agenda. Maybe you like.
I would just enlarge the education scope to also to the decision makers. I think there is a lot to do yet on educating decision makers across the board, governments, industry players, so that they feel, so that you raise the comfort zone for this transition. And I think comfort is key, and I think education for comfort is key.
Have you been explaining the Hydrogen Valley concept to these public people? What did you do?
Like at Riga, we have been doing it a lot. Like the project has started long ago. It's true that from an operation perspective, the last 18 months have been crucial. But I think that this is what we feel the most of an obstacle today, is that before convincing, you have to educate. And it's very difficult to have an exchange about a topic like green hydrogen or energy transition when the base of knowledge is not there.
Yeah, you can, and you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, let's go loosen. I think it's very true. You need to educate the politicians and also the financial institutions, because they don't understand the business, because they never looked into the business. They have to learn. We develop projects, parties develop projects. If a party comes to me and says, hey, I'm here, I'm in the investment phase, I want to go to an innovation phase, I want to go in an investment phase. If you go to a bank at that moment, you're too late. The bank has to be early in the boat to understand what the entrepreneur is doing and why he's doing it, to speed up this. And the same goes for the politicians. And we need stability on that field as well.
Yeah. Okay. You wanted to add?
Yes, in the same thing of education, I think we can also put an effort to learn the society level, because people who don't have this background of energy engineering or chemical engineering, he can read, he can learn in the radio, in the TV, green hydrogen or hydrogen valleys or green chemistry, how it will change the world. But we have to make him learn how this green hydrogen economy is very benefit for his life and the life of the others, because the association of society are very important and they play a major role in this part.
Okay, very good. I want to go again up to global, but I see still a question already for a long time, and it's about pink hydrogen. What do the speakers think about pink hydrogen derived from nuclear energy? Given that it's carbon-free, should it be more promoted? Is it essential to achieve a successful green transition, meaning one that benefits everyone and not just makes some companies richer? One of you would like to react on that? It's a difficult. I can as well by myself, but that's my personal opinion.
I think that from the Riga perspective, what we think is that any solution that helps decarbonization, that helps a transition, can be looked at. We really focus on green hydrogen, and we think that there is so much to do, and there is so many low-hanging fruits that this is the focus. And I think being focused is very important.
Usama? See, now there's reaction.
Quickly, like you mentioned, any kind of hydrogen that will help this energy transition is so welcome. But we have to keep in mind that each source of hydrogen has benefits and inconvenience. So nuclear is, yes, it's carbon free, But safety, we have to be very sure that we control this part of security and safety when we speak about nuclear.
Yeah, I just think, I mean, it's really important to be a little bit technology agnostic when it comes to climate tech. We should have open mind, of course. But I'm just thinking, you know, every country have endowment. There are still countries that they don't have wind and solar. So I'm just thinking maybe it makes more sense than to import, you know, convert hydrogen into ammonia, then import it if you have already existing nuclear. Then it might make sense. But to build nuclear plant to make hydrogen, of course, for me, it's a complete no-brainer because it costs a lot of money. But if you already are producing, if you're already a nuclear country, and if you have no alternative, I think, you know, during that transition, it could be possible to be a bit more flexible, I think. So I just wanted to add that.
Okay, thank you, Patrick.
A little addition to that. We have a fully green hydrogen valley. Pink is a nice color, but I like green more.
Okay. It's personal. I think it's also important to look to the business case as such. As we see as well, we have to make clean hydrogen cheaper. So that's, I think, and is nuclear cheap enough to make the business case good? I see the audience again, a question. Maybe you can, yeah. And then we go to up to the global again. The question here. Yep.
As you said, we had to focus. I like the way of thinking, but a lot of problems are with the efficiency of the hydrogen production, green hydrogen. Still, we are in a low efficiency. First of all, the renewables are in low efficiency, and then the second part is the hydrolysis, that it's a low efficiency. And then we have the transportation. So we are transporting by pipes, maybe by boats, and the hydrogen is a niche one. It's for industry or for other things. Why can we not buy from the electricity green electrons wherever we are and produce the hydrogen in the local place that is really needed? Because you have to take a lot of things in consider for the hydrogen. You have to have the sun or the wind, the land, the industry nearby, or if you want, and not always it goes together. So if, for example, we have places that a lot of green energy is producing, and it's very far from industry zones, you won't have to put pipes of hydrogen. Maybe you can buy the electrons and in the other region, virtually, of course, and then to produce in situ, because I think that the hydrogen should produce as much as we can in situ. I know also companies, technology, a startup in Israel that goes to make a small hydrogen to a household way of thinking. So this is also something that we have to take in consider very much, because not all the conditions also always are in the same place.
Who likes to react on that?
I can do so. Well, yes, I think you have to look on the specific situation. Whenever you can produce something very close to the source, that's good. But then the off-taker shouldn't be too far away. There is a cutoff there. That's an economic consideration. Looking at a region like the North Sea, makes more sense to, let's say, depends on how far offshore the windmills are, to either produce hydrogen there or onshore itself. And I think every region has its specific solution for that. So that's actually what I can say about it. Makes sense, but it's very specific and very dedicated, or very dependent on the specific situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would confirm. I would be in the same line from a Riga perspective. It was really the business case that make it, and of course it needs to be, again, off-takers. In Riga's case, is high-grade temperature industries, and because we are looking just with one green hydrogen valley, we are already looking for 10% of the carbon emission of industries in Portugal. If we replicate it, we believe that by focusing on these pockets of use cases, we are actually bringing a better case into the table of decarbonization.
Yeah. And maybe you can react as well on the first question, or them both. In EU, there's still most electricity produced from fossil fuels. How to make sure that hydrogen does not push out decarbonization of the power sector? Can one of you?
Okay, yeah, I can just say a few things, but I think to your point, I think it's really important to not miss out on the opportunity to, not necessarily what I'm not necessarily going to agree, but what I'm going to say is sometimes we need to look at supply chains where we can actually decarbonize the product. So when we look at steel, does it make more sense to bring green ammonia or green hydrogen to Europe and then make steel? Or does it make more sense to decarbonize iron ore or bring iron ore to Europe and then process it into steel? But these are technology-dependent issues, so for sure, these are part of the thinking, both for I think within the whole hydrogen ecosystem and whole steel ecosystem, it's still being considered. So that's important. And then how does it not push power sector? I think we're in a good place in EU. I'll be probably answering also Patrick's the question addressed to Patrick a little bit here. I think it's very clear to everyone that we have selected more or less the sectors where hydrogen will have a unique role to play. It will not play a unique role everywhere. It seems like in Europe, not maybe in Asia, that hydrogen will not play a huge role in mobility. Not today, personal mobility. We know that it's not going to play a huge role in heating. It's not going to take place. It's very clear that heat pumps are more efficient. So as by doing that, by sort of selecting the unique, really, really hard to abate, the sectors where we cannot decarbonize without this high heat hydrogen provides, thereby I think we're giving a lot of space to power sector. In other places in Asia, we might see things being decided differently, but this is exactly what's happening in the power sector in Europe.
Well, regarding to the first question, I do agree with the colleagues. We have to look into that in a very efficient way. We need to put in more wind, more sun, more renewable energy. Then it will decide, and we're in the transition phase now. So we need to be aware of that. And regarding the last one, that's a very interesting question. It has to do with system cost. Because if you look at the Netherlands and you have kind of old buildings in the cities where it's not allowed to even screw something in the wall or put a nail in the wall, there hydrogen may offer a good solution. It's very dependent on the location and the specific argumentations there. So I'm not advocating everywhere, but in specific solutions it can be done.
Yeah.
And it should be done because it's more efficient.
Yeah, there's a question as why not using heat pumps instead of hydrogen for the audience here. We are almost at the end, and I would like to wrap up a bit, but also to say a couple of things. It's about going global, no exploitation of the South. I think the philosophy is to roll it out on the global level. Decarbonization, we don't need it only in Europe, but we like to see it as well happening in Africa, and it was mentioned already in the panel. We have to take care. But there might be, in some cases, a bit of overproduction of green hydrogen, and sometimes there's a shortage. And that's why also with RepowerEU, we were looking as well, we might need at a certain point to import clean hydrogen. But we really need to find a balance. Hydrogen is not only needed in Europe, it's on a global level. And as a simple example which I use it's the maritime sector. If they start to use hydrogen or ammonia as a fuel for going over the seas and ocean, they need to fuel everywhere. In Chile, in the United States, in Singapore, wherever. So we need clean hydrogen on the global level. That's also why we are exporting, I think, as well, the Hydrogen Valley model to other countries with Mission Innovation. Myself, I'm director as well from the Mission Innovation Clean Hydrogen Mission, where we have set a target of cost reductions going to $2 per kilogram, but also to demonstrate clean hydrogen. And we have asking all the members, and it is coming from all the parts of the world in this mission, to demonstrate free hydrogen valleys. In the United States, hydrogen hubs. I know that in India there is now a call open for hydrogen valleys, so that we really see that all the countries are picking this up. And I think that's important. It is a success story in Europe. We are still calling for regions willing to invest in a hydrogen valley. With the Clean Hydrogen Partnership, there is a call open almost every year for hydrogen valleys. We opened a website, h2v.eu, where you can find some examples from all over the world, also some interesting brochures about what is a hydrogen valley, critical success factors and barriers. You addressed already something. I hope you will get something back home. And you think, hey, is that something for my region, for my institution? You mentioned already, education is important, sharing is important. And that's what we have to do. We need more discussion with each other to get a good understanding, to accelerate the rollout of hydrogen valleys. I think that's very important. This is maybe a starting point. It happens already. But I would like to thank you for being here. Also the people at home, behind the screens, very useful. And thank you for your questions and your attendance. And if there's anything, don't hesitate to reach out to us. The communication is working nowadays very well. So thank you.